My name's Logan. I'm 39 years old, and I work as an electrical inspector in Nashville, Tennessee. I've been married to Riley for 12 years. We've got two kids, a boy in fifth grade and a girl who just started middle school. I've had the same job for nearly a decade. We live in a modest three-bedroom house just outside of town, and until a few years ago, I honestly thought I was living the dream. I wasn't looking for anything flashy. I didn't need fame or exotic vacations or some fairy tale romance. I just wanted a stable home, a woman who had my back, and the kind of marriage where we still looked at each other like we used to back when we were broke and crazy in love. That was enough for me. And for a long time, it seemed like it was enough for her too. When we first got together, Riley was sweet, affectionate, funny as hell. She'd jump on my back when I came in from work or pull me into the shower with her just because. She used to leave little sticky notes in my lunchbox, stupid stuff like, "Don't forget you're hot," or "Can't wait to kiss you later." I lived for those notes. I carried one in my wallet for almost 2 years until it disintegrated. She used to love how tired I looked when I got home. "You're all sweaty and manly," she'd tease, pulling at my shirt. Back then, I didn't even need to say anything. She wanted me, plain and simple. But that woman's been gone for a long time now. I don't know exactly when things started shifting, but I remember how it felt, like someone slowly turning down the volume on a song you love until you can barely hear it anymore. At first, I didn't say anything. I figured we were both tired, jobs, kids, stress. Life happens. But then weeks turned into months. It started with little things. I'd reach for her in bed, and she'd turn away. I'd try to kiss her neck while she was folding laundry, and she'd stiffen up. I'd joke about us needing a date night, and she'd roll her eyes like I was being needy. I'm not the kind of man who begs for attention. I'm steady, I show up, I take care of business. I've never cheated, never raised my voice at her, never once made her feel unsafe. I pay the bills, fix the things that break, and I'm home every night by 6. But got to a point where every attempt to connect with her, physically or emotionally, felt like knocking on a locked door. I'd lie in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling, just wondering, what the hell happened to us? She started saying things like, "I'm just not in the mood lately. You always want something. I'm touched out from the kids. It's not all about sex, Logan." And I get it, truly. I know that intimacy isn't just physical, and I know motherhood is exhausting. But this wasn't about exhaustion anymore. This was about choice. She was choosing to disconnect, choosing to reject me night after night, like I was some pervert bothering her instead of the man who built a life with her. It got to a point where I started feeling embarrassed to even try. Imagine that, a grown man in his own home, married to the woman he loves, and he feels ashamed to reach for her. I'd touch her arm and wait for the sigh. That little breath she'd let out, half annoyed, half bored. I'd lean in for a kiss, and she'd offer me her cheek. Once, I tried to surprise her with breakfast and a note that said, "Miss this." And she said, "Don't guilt me into anything, Logan." That one cut deep. I wasn't trying to guilt her. I was just trying to remember what it felt like to be wanted. And the truth is, I hadn't felt wanted in a long time. I started shutting down without realizing it. I stopped cracking jokes at dinner. Stopped grabbing her waist when she passed me in the hallway. Stopped suggesting date nights or romantic weekends. Because after a while, rejection doesn't just hurt, it humiliates you. It makes you feel small. At work, I was still the dependable guy, the guy who showed up early and got things done. But inside, I felt like a damn ghost, like I was disappearing inside my own life. The worst part, I couldn't even talk to anyone about it. You try telling another guy, "Yeah, my wife hasn't touched me in 6 months," and all you get is awkward silence or jokes about sleeping in the garage. And talking to her? Forget it. Anytime I tried, she'd get defensive. "Is that all I am to you? Why are you making this about sex again? You don't understand what I deal with." And maybe I didn't. Maybe I'll never fully understand what it's like to juggle work and motherhood and hormones and all that. But I know what it's like to lie in bed next to someone and feel completely alone. I know what it's like to see your wife smile at her phone more than she does at you. To come home and feel like a burden instead of a man. And slowly, something inside me began to break. Not loudly, not violently, just quietly, like a faucet dripping until the sink overflows. I started questioning everything. Not just the marriage, but myself. Was I not attractive anymore? Was I too predictable? Too boring? Too dependable? It's a dangerous road, that kind of self-doubt. It makes you shrink, makes you pull back in ways you don't even notice. I stopped kissing her goodbye in the mornings. Stopped texting her during lunch breaks. Stopped asking her to watch a movie with me at night. I just went through the motions. She didn't even notice. That was the part that hurt the most. She didn't notice that I had stopped trying. And that's when I realized, if she didn't care when I tried, she sure as hell wouldn't care when I stopped. But what I didn't know then was that this silence, this slow burn, would lead to something she never expected. Me finally saying no. No to favors. No to her endless requests. No to being treated like a tool she could pull off the shelf only when she needed something. I didn't know it yet, but the tables were about to turn. And this time, she'd be the one reaching out into the silence. It wasn't some big moment. There was no fight, no dramatic conversation, no slammed doors or shouting. Just a quiet decision I made while brushing my teeth one Tuesday morning. I looked up at myself in the mirror, still half asleep, face tired, shoulders slouched, and thought, I don't recognize this man anymore. And worse, I didn't like him either. I was the guy who used to smile walking into his own house. The guy who used to leave notes in his wife's purse, plan surprise date nights, wrap his arms around her waist when she was cooking just to feel her laugh against his chest. Now, I felt like a butler, a backup babysitter, a bank account with a pulse. So that morning, I made a choice. I wasn't going to fight for someone who wasn't fighting with me. I wasn't going to beg to be kissed, touched, or wanted. I wasn't going to ask anymore. That first day, nothing changed. I still made coffee like I always did. Still packed lunches for the kids. Still drove to the site at 7 a.m. sharp. But when I came home and she asked if I could check the dryer because it was making a weird noise again, I looked at her and said, "Not today. I've got things to do." That's it. No attitude. No sarcasm. Just a boundary. She blinked, confused, then walked away. Next morning, she asked if I could drop the kids at school because she had an early Zoom call. I can't. I already told my boss I'd be there early. And that time, I watched her face. She was genuinely stunned, like it hadn't even occurred to her that I could say no. That's when it hit me. She was shocked by the man I was becoming. Not mean, not spiteful, just unavailable, emotionally detached, the way she had been to me for months. I started sleeping better, waking up sharper. My appetite came back. I started running again in the mornings, lifting weights at night. Nothing intense, just enough to sweat out the frustration and remind myself what it felt like to move for me, not for her. And slowly, my silence became louder than any argument we ever had. She noticed it in little ways at first. I stopped asking her to watch movies with me. Stopped rubbing her back before bed. Stopped making her tea when she was working late. I come home, eat, shower, and sit in the garage listening to music or scrolling through tools online. No conversation. No complaints. One night, around 10 p.m., she came out to the garage holding 2 mugs of tea. "You disappeared again," she said, almost playfully. I looked at her, leaned back in the chair, and simply replied, "Just needed some air." She stood there for a few seconds like she expected more. Some warmth, some guilt, but I didn't offer it. I just nodded and looked back at my phone. She left without saying a word. After that, things started unraveling on her end. She became clingy, but not in a romantic way, in a transactional way. Every conversation was about what she needed. "Can you fix the AC unit? It's not blowing cold again. Do you mind running to Costco? I've got a lot on my plate. The trash guy didn't come. Can you call the city?" And my response? "You can call them. You've got a car. You've got 2 hands." Again, no yelling. No passive-aggressive tones. Just a calm, distant man who had nothing left to give someone who drained him dry for over a year. Then came the awkward dinner nights. She tried to make conversation. Asked how work was. Asked about the kids' school projects like we were suddenly friends again. I'd answer politely, but briefly. I didn't light up. I didn't lean in. I was there, but not present, the same way she had been for so long. She started wearing nicer clothes around the house, putting on perfume again, leaving her phone face up like she wanted me to notice she wasn't hiding anything. I didn't ask. I didn't care. because the truth was I had finally crossed over emotionally. There's this point you reach as a man, after months or years of rejection, humiliation, and emotional starvation, where you stop trying to get back what was lost. You start realizing you can either fight for her attention or finally give yourself your own. And that's what I did. I started taking care of myself the way I used to take care of her. I stopped doing extra favors, stopped chasing approval, stopped walking on eggshells. If the sink leaked, she could YouTube it. If the dog needed a vet appointment, she could make the call. I wasn't her technician. I wasn't her emotional crutch. I wasn't her background character anymore. And the more I ignored her requests, the more anxious she became. She started asking if everything was okay. I said sure. She asked if we could talk soon. I said, maybe. She offered to go out for dinner, just the two of us. I said I got plans that night. And for once I did. Plans to sit alone, eat wings, and watch a football game in silence. It felt better than any forced conversation we could have had. Then came the night she finally snapped. I was in bed, scrolling on my phone. She came in wearing lingerie she hadn't touched in over a year. The same set she used to wear when she actually wanted me. She stood at the edge of the bed and said, I feel like we've been off lately. Can we fix this? I didn't even look up right away. I set the phone down, looked her straight in the eye, and said, you turn me down every time I reach for you. Every time I needed you, you made me feel small. Now you need me, and I got nothing left. She looked stunned, hurt, angry. You're punishing me? She asked. I shook my head. No, I'm protecting myself. And that's when she finally understood. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't payback. This was consequence. I didn't leave that night. I didn't throw her out. But I knew, deep in my bones, that something was over. The part of me that used to chase, beg, and break myself into pieces just to be held by her, he was gone. And now, she was standing in the silence she built. It's strange how quiet the house is now. The TV still runs at night. The fridge still hums. The kids still laugh. But everything else, it's different. There's a silence between us now, the kind that doesn't come from anger or shouting, but from distance. The kind of distance that happens when one person finally stops caring enough to close the gap. And that person was me. I didn't leave. I didn't cheat. I didn't scream or throw accusations. I just stopped offering what was no longer appreciated. The woman who used to turn her back on me in bed now reaches for me, and I stay still. The same hands that once pushed mine away now gently tug at my arm when I walk past her in the hallway, and I keep walking. The irony? I didn't plan this. I didn't sit around and calculate how to get back at her. I just got tired. Tired of begging for scraps of affection. Tired of being the one who always had to initiate. Conversation, intimacy, connection, forgiveness. I gave until I was dry. And when I finally accepted that the well was empty, I walked away emotionally, even if I was still sleeping under the same roof. She noticed it right away, of course. Women always notice the silence. They always notice the absence of effort more than the effort itself. At first, she tried to test it. Asked if I wanted to watch a movie together. I said not really. Offered to cook something special. I told her I already ate. Tried to hold my hand in the car. I moved it to the gear shift. It wasn't petty. It wasn't revenge. It was clarity. When someone denies your presence long enough, eventually, you start treating them like they're no longer there. The shift in our dynamic wasn't just emotional. It became visible. I started dressing better, shaving more often, going to the gym consistently. I began taking weekend drives alone, hitting the lake with a six-pack, fishing rod, and silence. I wasn't trying to look good for anyone else. I was just remembering what it felt like to live for me again. And of course, that only made her more confused. She started asking questions. Where are you going? Why are you acting different? Are you seeing someone? I gave her nothing. Just shrugs, brief answers, or a simple, don't worry about it. The woman who once acted like I was invisible now couldn't stop looking at me. She started sending texts during the day again. Hope your day's going well. Miss you. I've been thinking about us lately. I never replied. Not to be cruel, but because I'd already had those thoughts. Months ago, when I was lying awake next to someone who treated me like a burden. A man can only lie in silence for so long before he gets up and walks away. If not with his feet, then with his heart. The night it all came to a head was a Thursday. Kids were asleep. I was sitting at the kitchen table, finishing some paperwork from a rewiring project I'd overseen in Brentwood. She sat across from me, quiet at first, then said, "I know I've been distant, and I've been trying. You just been cold." I didn't look up. "I know," she continued. "I miss us. I miss how we used to be. I don't know what happened, but I want to fix it." I finally set the pen down, looked her in the eye, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I felt done. I said, "You want to fix it now, because now you feel what I've been feeling for over a year." She looked stunned. I continued, "I begged for your touch, Riley. Begged for a moment of affection. A look, a kiss. I reached for you every night, and you turned away. I asked you what was wrong, and you said nothing. I offered everything I had, not just physically, but emotionally, and you made me feel like a needy burden." She opened her mouth, then closed it. I leaned back in the chair and finished. "Now that I've stopped asking, now that I don't need you, you suddenly want me back. But the truth is, you weren't rejecting sex. You were rejecting me, and that I can't unfeel." She cried, whispered, "I'm sorry." I nodded. "Me too." We didn't speak for the rest of the night. In the weeks that followed, she kept trying. Woke up early to pack my lunch. Started dressing nice again. Tried to sit close to me on the couch. Sent me suggestive texts during work hours. But it was like trying to revive a fire after the ashes had already gone cold. And the thing about men like me, steady, loyal, quiet, is that we give you everything up front. But once we're gone, we don't come back. I started spending more time away. Long walks, late gym sessions, random drives. I started sleeping on the couch by choice, not out of spite, but because I genuinely felt more peace there. She once begged me to hold her in bed again. Said she missed feeling safe in my arms. I looked at her and said, "You didn't care when I needed to feel wanted. Why should I pretend now?" She didn't answer, because she knew. She'd withheld intimacy, connection, touch, respect. Now I was withholding myself, not out of vengeance, but because I was no longer available for a relationship where I was only loved when I was missed, not when I was present. Eventually, I filed for legal separation. I told her we needed space. Time. Truthfully, I just needed out. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want a dramatic ending. I wanted something she never gave me in the end. Peace. Now, I live in a small rental house on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. It's quiet, clean, balanced. The kids come by on weekends. We fish, grill, watch movies. They see me smiling now, not faking it, but actually at peace. Riley still calls sometimes. Still texts. "Can we talk? Can I see you?" I'm not the same woman I was. And maybe she's not. But I'm not the same man either. The man she once ignored? He's gone. Now I live by one rule. If you didn't care when I needed you, don't expect me to care when you finally realize it. She withheld love when I offered it freely. So I withheld myself when she wanted it desperately. That's not revenge. That's balance.